Blog Talk Radio.
Well, I don't know. I think we might be on air. I'm not sure. According to my switchboard, it says so. This is Open Money on Blog Talk Radio. I'm Ernie Jacob, and I'm waiting for Michael Linton to check in. And, there he is. Hello, Michael. Are you there?
Well, if I'm there, I must be here.
Yes, you are there. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Are we getting clear sound today?
Well, I hope so. Certainly, it'll be clearer on Blog Talk than it is here. Anyway, so this is Blog Talk Radio coming to you from the Comox Valley in Canada, and we are talking about open money systems, community currencies, LETs, and mutual credit, and Commonwealth. We were going to discuss what, and I put it in the context of Commonwealth. Perhaps that's not where we want to go with this, but the necessary and sufficient conditions for all to increase Commonwealth, to revert, to change what we now have in terms of common poverty globally to Commonwealth. Is that too broad?
The realization thereof. Yeah, I think this conversation has its origin in our continual difficulty in getting clear with people what is necessary and sufficient to get on with this game, to get on with the money world and to tidy things up.
Well, the money world, you mean the open money world, community currencies?
Well, that's the initiatives, the collection of initiatives that we're advocating and saying, let's go with this. And sometimes the question is, what is the necessary and sufficient mix of elements that we have to put together for community currency? Other times the question is, what do we have to do to put together our planetary well-being? And often the question seems to be confused, that people are saying they're mixing the categories, and they have too many issues which are not clearly distinguished, and therefore they can't sort out what we've got to be doing.
But if we are talking about changing local and global patterns of loss of diversity and habitat and forests and fish and all of that moves us further and further towards global poverty. What we're saying with community currencies is that that is a way that we can change, we can transform our societies, our world, so that we are building commonwealth and healing ourselves and the planet in the process.
Yes, and the question is, which comes first, this chicken or that egg? The urgency that we see around ecology, around social justice, around military spending, around all the day-by-day drama of human society. People become so obsessed with the destruction and the detriment and the panic thereof, that they're trying to fix it before they fix the boat that we're sailing in. We're not going to get through this storm unless our vessel, our ship, is a floating one. And the first point towards a necessary solution is fix the boat. Now, a lot of people in the community currency field tend to say that this is a moral issue and a social issue and a psychological issue and an educational issue before it's an issue that has to do with the technology that we're using for money. It's the theory we can't have a community currency until we have communities, and that the communities that are around so far that we can see are the bedrock on which we will be able to implement currencies. So we need more communities so that currencies can work. And our point has always been the other way around. It is the argument that we actually need to be empowering communities that we don't see as existing yet. That the fact of connecting people in particular ways creates a community of some quality. The quality may not be high. What is the type of it? How does it work? There may be a variety of things, but it's useful to think of a community as a thing that does stuff. That's a very loose definition in some respects.
You mean a thing, a collective? A collective of people.
If you think of a bee, you have a bee. If you think of a swarm of bees or a hive, then you have a thing which is the composite of those singular elements. The ant colony is not. Yes, the community is what the ants are doing. The ant colony is what a collection of ants are. A bee hive, a bee swarm is what is a bee? What is a bee swarm? Is that what we're talking about?
We're talking about hives. No. I mean, they swarm. They swarm, at certain times. But the hive is the community, or it houses the community. Well, no, and the hive itself is an organism. So, yeah, it is.
It's basically it's defined by the interactions that take place between the elements. So if you have a group of elements that are interacting, they're a community. One can extend that definition to say that
like a group of elephants.
A group of elements is a herd of elephants, and their herd behavior is the consequence of their interactive relationships. You could almost say that a civil war in a country is a community of people whose form of community is to try and kill each other. They can be defined by their interactions and the fact that their interactions exist. At the moment on the social networking on the internet, all sorts of people are talking about the community of Facebook users, the community of people who do this, the community of people who participate in Delicious or Flickster or whatever group. And I think this is quite a useful definition of community, that a community is the collection of people who use certain processes to interact with each other. Now, the sort of conventional sense of community is rather more that it's a thing that is sort of built around a church or a school or a neighborhood, and we are a good community because we do these things. And the concept of community is similarly based. It is what that group of people are doing and where they are. But it's looked upon as a sort of, a collective intelligence of the entities. It's that because these people are in some form intelligent to the idea of community, then they come together and then they can build their trust, their expectations, their knowledge of each other, and therefore things happen. Now, the argument from the conventional side is that first you build the niceness, first you build the relationships, first you build the trust and understanding, And then you can maybe introduce a community currency because the trust exists.
Or you gather the community together, and create the currency. But the community comes first. But I mean, they exist anyway. Communities are there. I mean, all that needs to be done is for them to have access to community currencies.
Well, that's certainly one route that we're saying. There's bunches of de facto communities out there, some of which recognize themselves, some of which don't seem to know that they're aren't realized in some respects.
But are still there. Communities don't, groups of people who collaborate or work together who don't necessarily think of themselves as a community, or perhaps they're somewhat disparate or dysfunctional for that matter, and much of that dysfunction has to do with the way conventional money works.
Or doesn't, or the fact that we don't get on with our neighbors, or we've not learned the language of our interaction, or whatever. Our communities basically are not very productive and efficient in any useful sense. But the question is, do we base the opportunity of community currencies on the existing perception of communities and how we can engage and educate those? Or do we look at it that simply by the act of interaction with a community currency, a community comes into existence and potentially quite a powerful existence? I mean, if you take a bunch of small businesses in a region that decide to create a community currency incubator support network for their regional development, for staffing, for product sourcing, for interactive advice, for lending, for all sorts of things
for corporate social responsibility.
Yeah. Well, as soon as you've created that network, if actions take place on it, then those actions are, they're generally the sort of thing for which community is sought. When you go onto the internet and you say, we want a community for the Facebook users who like horses, then, the people who connect on the Facebook horse network are interested in events that occur between them as a consequence of their connection. Now, the best thing you get on Facebook is sort of swaps of pictures of horses. Look at my horse, look at your horse, advice about horses, friendships about horses, hopefully leading to connections and interactions. Well, the primary interaction on that level would be, I sell you a horse, you buy a horse from me. That's a pretty powerful interaction. That's the sort of thing where we can say, this isn't just a community of we smile at each other in the street. This is a community within which events happen, which are the sort of events for which we have sought this community. Now,
I mean, we're talking interaction, engagement,
right,
and and giving somebody something in exchange for something else is a core issue. To be able to do that, and no money go.
To be able to do it on a persistent basis, in a manner which my gift of the horse to you enables you to pass your mule to somebody else, or give the horse shit to yet another person, or whatever. It's that the action
we definitely want that horse shit. That's good stuff.
Yeah. Now, if the actions that precipitated by the first event, I sold you a horse for community currency or something, or riding lessons or advice on horses or whatever, if whatever event was first initiated by the currency then enables further roll-on events, a cascade of horse shit, for instance, then the currency has enabled the coherence, the sustainable persistence of this network of exchange. Whereas if it's just a Facebook network where I found out you've got a horse and we have negotiated,
we talk about how beautiful it is and what you feed
and I buy it. Yeah, but then even if I buy it, if I buy your horse, and we've made that connection through Facebook, one would say, oh, great, Facebook has enabled us to make this significant connection which resulted in a significant event. But because we're using conventional money, that's all that happens. It doesn't roll forward. There isn't a further transaction as a consequence of it.
Well, and there may be problems associated with it. You know, that horse you sold me has a bum leg.
Yeah, but that can happen in any currency now.
Well, of course.
So that's not related.
But there's a way of dealing with it, and well, anyway, that's true. That's a diversion from the issue.
Yeah, it's a secondary quality to the situation. The main one is what difference does it make that a community either has a currency or not, or that a currency creates a community. And
I wanted to say to that, it's both and. I mean, it's not either or. Communities exist; they will use community currencies. Communities that don't exist, that come into being, using community currencies, will do the same.
But it is one of these chicken and egg sort of questions. I think we've agreed, you and I at least. I don't know about the thousands of listeners who are busy at their keyboards and thriving on our intelligence here. But there is a guest that's joined the room, and it's quite possible that this guest is actually listening to this show and might want to call in. And there is a way of calling in, or they can just drop us a little chat line here saying they want to engage in the conversation, or they can call the number 646-716-9424, which is free in the U.S. of A, or we can Skype you in. So let us know if you want to talk, or if you and let us know if you hear anything and what the sound's like, etc. Any feedback? Let us know if you have any interesting questions.
Yes, for sure.
Questions at all. And there may be uninteresting questions. We'll tell you very quickly if they are. So don't worry about that. Don't feel inhibited. Just let us know what you want us to be telling you. Meanwhile, we will continue with our point that a community is what the things happen within it. If nothing's happening in what is called a so-called community apart from smiles in the elevator or nods at the door, then your apartment building is not a community. It's just a collection of people in the same place. Nothing's really happening. It's what happens that is the definition that is most useful. Now, in the community currency world, the chicken of community is, in our view, very dependent upon the quality of the egg of the currency. Now, there's two types of currencies that we can be using in our community. One is conventional money. So I buy a horse from you. You're richer in cash and I'm richer in horses. But that's the end of the game. That's it. Because the money that I've given you, you can spend absolutely anywhere. So that chicken, the chicken that comes from that chick is gone. It's not around to lay any eggs. It's like a Monsanto seed stock.
Okay, hang on.
On the other hand,
I have to go back. I think we're going to have to go back to the chicken. There's somebody here who's actually listening. Says it sounds great, but wants to get a feel for what the program is about, which is basically
it's about your money, sir. It's about we are talking about money, but not as you normally know it. The normal form of money is banking, government-type money. It's the U.S. dollar, the euro, the yen, the pound, and it's issued by central banks. And we know that stuff. We've all got some of it. We'd all generally like a bit more of it, and whenever we spend it, it's gone. That's the simple status of conventional money. We're now talking about community currencies, which are forms of money that exist amongst people who choose to use them. I know that sounds like a simple circular definition, but that's what it is. And an example might be childcare network of 6 families who have a bunch of kids, and we just keep track of who's had most kids, most hours, and we balance it up. So one day I'm racking up a lot of hours times kids because I'm looking after bunchies, and the next day you are because you're looking after them, and we just keep score. And it'd be like a car share thing to be done that way, all sorts of networks. That extends up into more complex time banking sort of systems, where if I spend time fixing your car and you spend time fixing my roof and or my hair or something like that, like whatever the skills in exchange in time, we just measure it in so many hours of your time, so many hours of my time.
And our guest has asked more than bartering.
Oh, yeah.
The question is more than barter. I mean, bartering is a one-to-one deal. My chickens for your haircuts. If I don't want your haircuts, there's no deal. That's barter. Then if you put a token in there in between, in that process, then the token can move as money. We can still do the deal.
If it's a scorekeeping amongst a group of players, therefore the neighbors are keeping track, and basically the number of hours becomes the number of hours you can spend. The more you do, the more you can get. It's an interactive to and fro that there is a token rather than we're restricted to you do something for me, I do something for you. It's you do something for me, and therefore you get some of my points, my promises, my commitments, which you can spend.
Which I can use with somebody else in the system, in the network, whatever community we are doing these exchanges in, these trades.
So what this amounts to is really like a little set of connected pistons. One goes up, one goes down. One goes up somewhere over there because another one's going down. So we're just bouncing up and down in a little network of energy exchange, which we're measuring in hours or dollars, for instance. So
what would be a good website to point our guests to?
I think openmoneyeditme.com is a good one because it has all the information and graphics and the width of the concept.
Yeah, that's right. It's the graphics that I was thinking of.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good place to go because that's intended to be the broad-based introduction to what community currencies are all about. But what they fundamentally come down to is money that moves around.
What's that?
Sorry. We're overriding each other here. Yeah, I'm returning to the more than bartering, but within the context of our conversation you and I are having. It's more than bartering in that it creates an onflow and reconnection of giving and exchanging around a group of people or businesses or communities. So all sorts of things can be independent networks of this to and fro, round and round, give and take. And the beauty of the form of money that this is lies in its round and roundness, the fact that when I spend it in my network, it doesn't go outside the network. So it carries with it the requirement that whoever's spending it is buying something, time, services, goods, from somebody else inside the network. And what this creates is not a restriction of trade. This isn't about barriers to trade or exchange. It's actually an increased enablement. It's another layer of opportunity that comes on top of the problematic conventional money grab, fight, competitive dog-eat-dog world. It's a competitive. Conventional money is always going to be competitive. It forces us into competitive, competing for jobs, competing for sales, competing for place, competing for esteem, salaries, leverage. It's all about getting the money to be able to spend it. We all need it, so we're all scrambling, and that's the name of the game. Fight for it.
Our guest has a question about how do governments deal with the public policy aspects of infrastructure planning.
Okay, well, basically better than they're doing at the moment would be the short answer to that question. I mean, how are they dealing with it at the moment? Tax and spend. That's what you got.
And it's not enough tax to take care of the infrastructure, which is crumbling. I presume that's one of the issues.
Well, I think what our guest is basically saying is that the monetary system as it currently operates includes a provision for infrastructure commons of some level. How do we get the world of roads, hospitals, telecommunications, security, law, all that handled, environmental protection, etc. Education, for instance. How do we do these things in our communities? Through government at the moment, of taxation is the answer for a major part. Community currencies will be part of that support network too. Community currencies, for the main part, will be fully taxable at all the retail points of sale, all the bonus payments, salaries, wages that contain components of community currencies.
Anytime they go through, anytime it goes through a set of books, taxes are paid.
Yeah, I mean, this is not different from normal money in terms of the fiscal, tax, legal responsibilities of protagonists in their various ways. It's no different if you're paying your bill at a restaurant and you paid part of it in cash and part of it on a card. The business has no concerns about which. Yeah, it's easier if it's all one, of course, but sometimes you've got to use a bit of this and a bit of that, or you buy something. Well, anyway, you get that picture. Well, as far as community currencies are concerned, it's the same situation. I'm paying so much in cash at the restaurant, and I'm paying so much in my community currency, probably by a smart card or online transfer of some sort, a direct debit. Now, in the case of the business, it's just money in, and later it's money out, and it goes through their books, and it relates to state taxes, sales taxes, income taxes in exactly the same way as credits and debits do in conventional money. So one of the things that will come from the deployment and evolution of community currencies on a larger scale, on any scale, is an increase in funds available to governments at local, regional, and national levels, and in the global levels, to start addressing the infrastructure requirements that we are woefully inadequate to address with our current situation. Well, we can afford planes, bombs, we can afford boondoggles, we can afford pretentious ceremonies, we can afford all sorts of crap at the government level.
Well, I don't know about first of all, I don't know about the we, and I don't know about the afford.
No.
But the question,
that's
the question from our guest.
Oh yeah.
So you think that this will improve efficiency in the overall economy?
Yeah, efficiencies
I mean,
of how many?
We're getting intelligent questions here.
Such a pleasure.
It's unusual.
Asking questions. Yes, the answer is yes, it will. It'll improve efficiency at the simplest level of enabling redundant resources to be brought into exchange. That is the unemployed worker who used to have a great job until the local factory got outsourced to some other place where the wage rates were cheaper and environmental concerns less pressing, and therefore it was easier to ship the goods into the supply chain at the Walmart level and pump it out, and etc. We know these people, the people who are too poor to live but therefore have to shop at Walmart. There's a considerable inefficiency in having large parts of society disabled, simply because there isn't anything around to enable their participation in the economy. So the first line on efficiency is, let's get rid of unemployment. How about that? So that's
and homelessness.
On level.
How about homelessness?
And well, the practical application of where the economy goes, those are moral, political, and market choices. We can just talk at what the efficiency will be. First of all, is more liquidity, more circulation, basically a boom economy everywhere. Although the nature of the boom will be different in sub-Saharan Africa than it will be in Pittsburgh. But it will be a boom economy in the locally circulating and the regionally circulating liquidity. So yeah, there's an efficiency simply of boost, another layer on the economic cake, another ability to bring resources in. But there's a more considerable efficiency in the nature of the steering, the products of these economies. You see, one of the biggest problems we have in our political economic discussions these days is if you say the economy needs to grow to solve issues of poverty and infrastructure development and all these, but then, oh my God, a growing economy is deterioration of the environment. It is all the negative things that we have come to associate, quite rightly, with an increase in GDP at the current dollar-based, dollar process level. Don't quite know how to silence that. Yes, I do.
Well, while you're silencing it.
Yeah, so this is, it did get silenced. Can I just complete that thought? Therefore.
Yeah, for sure.
What
I was going to ask for was a website that we could point our guests to. More specific.
OpenMoney.org. Yeah, I think OpenMoney.org for the overall summary of the shape, nature, implementation, design, possibilities of the economy. On the other hand, if the guest is interested in technology, they should look at openmoney.info, where very, very cutting edge is going at the moment. But I was waxing lyrical about the nature of efficiencies in economies.
Yes, you were.
And the word efficiency is related to effectiveness. The Latin facere or something. Fact, all the facts. Anyway, effectiveness, getting things done. What are the things we need to get done? How can they be better done? Well, with a semi-conscious community, society, economy, body politic, we will do better than we are doing at the moment with a completely unconscious, erratic body politic. A society that is driven by a market of craziness. Everybody's running as fast as they can to get hold of anything that they can to be able to be in the market that makes them run as fast as they can. Boy,
this is the steering we were talking about.
Yeah, it's not so much steering. It's not steering any more than an airplane in spiraling into the chuck is being steered. It's steering itself.
No. Actually, I was thinking of it in terms of community currency steering.
Oh well. Yeah. Community currency are this is back to this business of what's the necessary and sufficient, and where is the emergence of the societal intelligence, the collective intelligence that makes our possibilities possible? How are we going to get through the next 50 generations, for instance? Well, it's only because we're going to get smarter as a society, and not particularly as individuals, although, boy, there's plenty to be done there. I'm sure it'll help. But it's when we get smarter as societies and are more capable of discerning the consequences of our actions and being able to choose actions that have positive consequences. That will be an improved efficiency. And, in some ways, that's what I'm looking for. Redundancy of resources I quite like. I mean, in some respects, the less our society does, the more efficient it is. If we get round to just hanging out and whistling at each other and playing music and drawing pictures on, more leisure is very efficient. We need more leisure.
I remember the 60s. I remember the 60s talking about. Certainly missed that one. It didn't happen, except for a few.
Right. Yes, who don't seem to be appreciating it as much as they should either. They seem to be more busy trying to get more of the same. Anyway, there you go. That's the background on efficiencies and the collective intelligence of what happens when a bunch of things start doing things with each other. in a way that generates an experience of benefit, a wealth acknowledgement. See, there are many forms of wealth that our society creates. For instance, take a positive expectation of the future. The idea, suppose everybody or majority of people thought things were going to work out well and had good reason to think they were. Is that better than living in a society where the majority of people think nothing's possible, nothing's working, and it's all going down the tubes? So that, we would be a wealthier society in the subjective experience of being in a happier place if everybody expected things were going to work and had good reason to do so. We wouldn't be in a better place if everybody thought it was going to work and they had no reason to do so. That would be like driving happily straight down the freeway with your foot hard down on the throttle and windshield fogged over into nowhere. It's full speed to crazy house. But
and our guest,
quite simply,
this relates. I think our guest's question here relates because talking about moving it back from China, talking about moving. Well, how does this move toy manufacturing, for example, from China back to the USA?
Local marketing of local products containing high local value added through the supply chain. If I'm for instance, somebody just going past me with a rather elegant kiddie carrier, one of these 3-wheel jobs, very nicely done in aluminum frame and plastic fittings. Things of that nature could be manufactured very easily in most urban spaces where there are urban or rural communities where there's, say, 50,000 people. There'd be sufficient productive capacity for devices like that to be built using local materials and local labor.
And recycled materials.
And being sellable at the wholesaling or distribution level with a component of the price in community currencies and a component of the price in hard cash, because there still will be a need for certain import items, certain cost factors in the product mix. But basically, you can buy that baby carriage then at Walmart for $100 flat cash plus taxes, or you can buy it through your local neighborhood network for $30 cash and 40 local, or maybe $50 cash and 100 local. It could be that by the time all the added value that goes from the materials acquisition, fabrication, assembly, packing, shipping, retailing, servicing in a product chain, we might find that we can, in some cases, have figures as high as 60, 70, 80% local value added. Some individual trades can be almost 100% local value added. Consultancies, advisories, skills exchange systems can be very high-end local value added, usually with a tax component, though. So,
but in any
essentially,
case,
you create both a pricing and a market.
Using community currencies to relocalize. I mean, these toy manufacturing outlet, or these plants that have been moved to China or have been recreated in China originally started as small local toy makers. Mm-hmm. And so what we're talking about is community currencies enabling the relocalization of toy making.
Yeah, you see, like in the primary sort of sustainable economies that we sort of remember and suppose, and it's a bit of fiction that we ever had them. We were despoilers of the planet Earth from day one. But certainly, some years ago, there was opera houses all across the middle of North America. There were theaters, there was production, and this was for two main reasons. One was that things didn't move easily. You couldn't ship things long distance, especially perishable things. And shifting things took significant costs. Energy costs were high in the rail period. And so when things cost a lot to shift, they had to be produced locally, and that's where you were, and that's how you did it. So most action and trading was circulation locally, and that was the way that we saw rich local economies, rich in variety, rich in skills base, rich in pattern, rich in what they produced and supported. And then we had highly transferable money and highly transferable everything. Principally the cheap oil, the transportation networks, the ability to consolidate in industries, cut costs, and ship crap all over the place, and undercut local production by this accumulation and form of distribution, and therefore you get the despoiling of local economies. And therefore, how do we get the manufacturing back is to basically recreate. We can't stop cheap transport, although oil is going to do that for us quickly.
I think cheap transport is gone, unless transport is highly.
It's on a slide. It's on a slide, but
it's just
the fact is that it is
still
expensive. Considered cheaper to get products from the far ends of the world in bulk for retail, foodstuffs, goods of various natures. Ship it if you can ship it. You do, So we still got the big problem that there are supply channels and productions which are extraordinarily subsidized. Now, we're not saying community currencies are going to take those on head first. We're not going straight up and try and fight those things. What we're saying is, here's something that supports an alternative approach to the issues of using local skills and resources productively to meet local needs, and potentially creating product surpluses that can be part of a wider exchange net. So there's more in this than any sort of closed feudal tribalism. It's very, very different from that. But there was one other side that I thought I wanted to touch on.
That's what we started, but okay, I was going to, while you just hold on to that, because that takes us back to the issue, the issue that we started with, and that was Commonwealth.
I want to touch on the it does. The commonwealth of the community is a damn sight higher when people are doing useful things and working with each other and making the place better than when they're fighting, struggling, and suffering. So
or just sitting around watching the tube because there's no money for that. They can't be paid to do anything.
Yeah. No economy, no action,
all that spare capacity, all those people who have the time and the skills, they might as well be doing something useful in the community, and this is a way. Community currencies provides the means.
And there's another way that we get the move of manufacturing, for example, China to the USA, and that is by the China getting more interested in China than they are in manufacturing crap to send back to us. Like, community currencies in China have the capacity to totally redirect the nature of the Chinese economy, which is about the most important thing we've got to do on the planet, is to get the Chinese to think differently. Because at the moment, the way they're thinking is really not doing us any good at all. Now,
let's not leave the NATO nations out of this, in terms of.
Well, I'm not talking about the war.
Let's not just focus on China.
Well, everywhere.
But I take your point. I understand what you're saying. I just didn't want to leave the other guys out.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm talking about basically the supply chain space where a functionally poor nation is part of a supply chain, is the manufacturing, is the exploitation of human labor and usually environmental situations and social justice in order to produce products that undercut in the first world, as it were, or anywhere for that matter. And the curious thing about community currencies with relation to China first world trade is that I think community currencies are going to, in China, increase the price levels that would have to be paid to subvert Chinese labor towards this form of market satisfaction. I mean, simply we're coming up inside the Chinese world in a way that perhaps will free the Chinese from this headlong, crazy expansionism, which is so environmentally and energetically detrimental, into getting their communities actually into productive agriculture, energy sustainability, shelter management. These are the issues. I mean, it's not about putting on the Olympics. We've got to put on something rather bigger than the Olympics, and it's a worldwide event, my friend. And the gun went off a long time ago. So we are in a race to, create sustainable community.
Right. So that takes us back to necessary and sufficient. Okay.
Yeah, and
we've nailed down the necessary part.
Well, yeah, the necessary. It's not sufficient. Well, it is sufficient to address the money model. The only thing we need to do to address the catastrophe of monetization, as we know it, is to monetize
ourselves
in circular monies, in network money. So that's a necessary and sufficient. Community currencies on the open money model are necessary and they are sufficient. We've got money handled. You guys just don't know it yet.
Which guy?
Just a minute. Even in a baby kind of yeah, there's plenty of things that can't be replicated.
Okay, better read. Wait a minute. Better. Okay. So your guest says, but even in a baby carriage, there is IP that can't always be replicated at the local level. I understand this for buggy whips, but not for laptops. Good question.
Well, yeah, the intellectual properties. Well, yeah, there are always going to be intellectual properties that exist in the proprietary space because somebody has thought of something that the withholding of which can make them money. It's curious. You don't make money by propagating something. You make money by withholding it so that people want it, so that they will buy it. That's the market, I guess. And so, yeah, there's always going to be a laptop that's a damn sight slicker than anything that I can assemble or aggregate from locally available or regionally available parts. But that doesn't mean there's not an immense value in making a bunch of IP, software particularly, but also music, literature.
Okay, wait a minute.
Hold on. Let me finish this one. We've got to have
intellectual
that
property talking about, right?
Yes.
IP. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm talking to this guy. He knows what IP is. She knows.
He knows. Yeah, but there may be. Actually, there is another guest that is listening in.
Okay. Well, anyway, IP is anything, and at the moment, IP is either given away or stolen, or it's sold. That's what we do with IP. Well, how about something where IP can be acknowledged, can be rewarded, can be recognized in open money? It's a big package. I'm not going to be able to explain that one in 20 seconds. I'm not going to even try. I'm just going to point that, okay, there's some products will be a mix of imported costs, local added value. And in some cases, that'll be IP. Other cases, replication substitution is possible. Maybe there'll be another question. Anyhow, we were at the collective intelligence and the creation
of the necessary and sufficient part, the sufficient part.
The sufficient side.
Mm-hmm.
So, open money is sufficient to get the ball rolling. To get the money, the craziness of money managed. It's like, in the old cowboy films when the cowboy gets to the front of the stampeding herd and turns the lead bulls, Oh, okay, well, we got that handled around money, honestly. The open money will head off the herd, stop the stampede. But still too many damned crazy bulls in this china shop. So there's more to be done than stopping the stampede. Where do we take our society? What's the direction we're going in? Like, how do we think that our plans, our projections for the future are realized? I think the first answer is very rarely are they realized in a useful way. We tend to fail more with our economic plans, both as societies and individuals, than we succeed. Things don't work out as planned. Things are what happen when you're busy making plans. So they're not talking about, a greater planning institute for the direction of whatever. I don't think we're talking about the abstract form of planning that a central planned economy might introduce. I'm talking about markets which are self-intelligent and learn from themselves, as all markets do. Markets are self-learning mechanisms. The only trouble is they only learn what they're capable of learning, what their complexity enables, and what they reward and what they punish. And the so-called free market in our world at this time is absolutely anything but that. It's the most limited, restricted, closed, and unfree thing that there ever has been on the planet. And that's because the money isn't free. Well, we're talking about community networks where the free circulation of available exchange value, credit, money, call it what you like. I'm not that bothered, but I'm talking about people will be able to do things with each other in a productive way and get somewhere with it. Well, that is a collective intelligence, and it leads to collective decision-making, collective creative processes, collective recognition of the dilemmas and the things that we can be dealing with.
The question.
The second life question.
Okay. Now, we've got 8 minutes left.
Hey, but look, I don't
Shall we deal with this question, or?
Oh, yeah, of course we'll deal with this question.
Okay, then the question is, have you studied what could be a microcosm of this, brackets, second life? Do you see this as successful? Are there any pilot projects to study? Two questions.
I can read, he can write, and anybody who's paying attention is live.
But the people who are listening can't.
The late comers, the people who follow.
Whoever, this is going to be this is a podcast. People can pick it up later. So they need to
cut this into the blog. The blog's up if they're watching reading a podcast or reading a blog.
Okay.
So
anyway, 7 minutes.
That was the last public announcement, apart from the 7 minutes. There are no pilot projects, not yet. We don't have any pilots. That is, people willing to strap on the headset, climb in this buggy, and take it out there. But there could be a project on Second Life this afternoon. And in 25 other online multi-user games, which have the most prosaically curious monetary models inside them. I mean, it's always fascinates me that the game industry, which is a creation of fantasy in a fantasy space, reverts to these peculiarly archaic monetary models, the Linden dollar and the like. We're very interested in those places. We're not interested in, at this point, putting our resources into working in them, but we have several people now beginning to inquire upon what will the open money model make available inside virtual game spaces. And I think it'll make a host of very interesting phenomena emerge. Second Life is organized around clans, for instance, so there'll be clan currencies. People will be buying and selling from each other, not just in the Linden dollar, not just offline through eBay in cash and the like. They will be doing it inside their clan structures with acknowledgement and payment mechanisms using our open money servers. That could be happening very, very soon. Few weeks, perhaps.
And at the fundamental core is that these are simple mutual credit systems.
Yeah, the easiest form of community currency is a mutual credit, up-down, name the measure, and that's the game package. Those are the things we call mutual credit. The let systems are the ones that are describable as the most likely Main Street meat world version. In Second Life, I wouldn't begin to really even bother guessing at what forms of currency will be most effective, most prolific in the early stages. They will be happening. It'll be interesting, certainly, to see what they do. But I'm much more interested in games in the meat world using virtual money. I think that's where we've got to be paying proper recognition. Now, the virtual world and the game space, I think a great place is to open the discussion and look around and play it. But graduate into the real world and play real games with virtual money. That's when we're going to see some real results. But anyway, I've run dry on that subject.
Have you? Well, just about running dry on the time anyway. So we could.
And the weekend is coming. Yes. Well, I think we should just make a magazine entry. Comment that this has been a week of great progress in the development and deployment of the software cited at openmoney.info. Eric has just spent 4 days in uninterrupted coding on the software for the next generation of Open Money, and it's been a splendid week. We've really cut to the core of the issue and resolved most of the immediate impediments and the middle range technical issues about namespace deployment. We're ready to go. A little bit of polishing and shaping, but I'm expecting an early December open announcement of the new Open Money frame. You can announce it right now on a limited loop. Open Money is now open, and not just for business. So, anybody who wants to know about it, openmoney.info, and follow the dotted line. Come on, guys, let's get where the action is. Get some rubber on the road. So thank you, Ernie. Another interesting morning, another interesting day, another interesting week. And I'll
yes. And if any of the people who've been listening in want to get in touch, I'm Ernie at openmoney.org, openmoney.org. And look, somebody thinks this is a good show. We'll take a look. Good show, guys. And Michael Linton is MWL at openmoney.org. So yeah, pop us an email or... Sorry.
I think, and just in terms of that first dollar issue, when the business gets the first dollar, it frames it and puts it on the wall, I think we ought to cut and paste good show guys and file it on one of our funny walls or fun walls in Facebook.
There's an idea.
I mean, is that the equivalent of cut? Yeah, it's got to be. We'll do that. Cut and paste.
I guess so, yeah. All right.
Thank you very much, guest. We appreciate your questions. They were bloody good questions.
This is the first time we've actually had any kind of interaction like this, and we very much appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
There is intelligent life out there. This is encouraging.
Okay, we got 1 minute left, and we're Open Money on Blog Talk Radio. I'm Ernie Jacob. He's Michael Linton. We're going to be back here again probably Monday morning. What do you think, Michael?
I'm Michael Linton, and I think you're Ernie Jacob, and I think probably Monday morning is probably right. Bye for now.
And probably around 10 or 11, right? If anybody wants to join us, pop us a line. Okay, that's it. I'm out of here. Thanks again to everybody, and to you, Michael, and to me, Ernie, and Blog Talk Radio. It's a wonderful facility.
Hanging out.